This week on Talking Royals, the debate over Canada, which dominated Commonwealth Day.
He's the king of Canada, and it's a Commonwealth realm. And Donald Trump saying, I want to have it, I mean, can't go down very well.
How the then Prince Charles survived a deadly avalanche.
The king said he had never seen anything so terrifying.
And the king reveals what's on his playlist.
This is music for dancing.
I reckon he's got a really great Sonos system in the palace. Hello and welcome to Talking Royals. I'm Charlene White, and as ever, we're joined by our royal producer, Lizzie Robinson, and our royal editor, Chris Shipp. How are you both doing today?
All right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. You've been out and about royaling this week?
Out and about
Is that a verb? To royal?
I don't know, but
Royaling.
To royal.
I think we report on members of the royal family. Yeah, royaling.
Yeah, that's what you do, royaling. Yeah. And we've all been having a bit of a boogie this week, haven't we? Because the king chose songs for a new playlist, didn't he?
Yeah, Apple Music, actually, the first playlist issued by a monarch, which revealed some interesting and eclectic mixes from King Charles III. Yes. Who knew he listens to Kylie Minogue, but we now know.
Yeah, and also loves a little bit of Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen to some of his choices. I, for one, can definitely imagine the king getting down and boogieing to all of those tracks.
It's a great playlist. Yeah. I absolutely love listening to this, actually. There are 17 songs on it, and it's laced with little anecdotes from the king before each artist. And it ranges a whole range of genres from 1930s to Afrobeats to disco and the incomparable Beyonce, as he calls her.
I mean, I don't think I'd ever thought I would hear the king say things like, anyone who's listened to Ray at the Grammy Awards will know. And it's kind of like, you actually said this? Did he actually listen to Ray at the Grammy Awards?
Look at old footage of the king back in the day when he was Prince.
Yeah.
He liked a little bit of dancing to music when he was out and about. So I sort of feel like he genuinely would love to keep on top of what the young people are listening to.
He says in the introduction, actually, talks about music bringing people joy and how it sort of reminds us of all different times in our lives, but ultimately it's there and it brings us joy. But the playlist is really good fun, and I really liked hearing all his anecdotes. When he met Bob Marley in London, and Ray's in there. There was 1920s, 1930s music that reminded him of his grandmother. It's an eclectic
Kylie Minogue
mix.
Came to London and she sang Locomotion, and I find it's infectious. It's kind of the king like you haven't really seen him before.
Well, let's take a listen.
We had a large reception for Australians in the United Kingdom, and as Kylie is an ambassador for my now King's Trust, she very generously agreed to come and perform. The song is The Locomotion, and this is music for dancing. Again, it has that infectious energy which makes it, I find, incredibly hard to sit still.
Do you know what? Why I love this is it really is, yes, giving a whole new generation of people an idea of who the king is in a slightly different way, but also reminding people of his legacy and just how many thousands of impressive people he's met over the years.
It's interesting watching how they are, how they're evolving and how they're trying to engage with new generations, younger generations, and right across the Commonwealth. It's interesting to see how they're finding these new ways. And I thought this was an inspired way to engage with people, actually.
So that does beg the question then, what's on your playlist? Do you know what your top
on mine you get a lot of...
the annual top 3. I can't remember.
Yeah, or like the top 3 of what you're listening to at the moment. If you were to connect, have I got my phone? Oh no, my phone's over there. I do know what mine are anyway.
I get a lot of maybe Snow Patrol on mine. Recently, I've been listening to a bit of Roberta Flack after she sadly passed away recently. I think she's got an absolutely beautiful voice, but
Yeah.
some Paolo Nutini crops in every so often.
Oh, Paolo's a good choice. Yeah, I like Paolo. There were quite a lot on the King's playlist, and I was like, I love.
You're in synergy with the king.
Do you think he puts his earpods in and listens to Apple Music?
No, I reckon he's got a really great Sonos system in the palace. Speakers on the ceiling, and he plays the music, and it just fills the room.
You think he walks around the palace going, "Okay, Google, please play"?
Oh, I'd love that.
Oh, if the palace could film that, that would make my day.
What are your top 3 then?
At the moment, listening to a lot of Doechii, who picked up awards at the Grammys and has done really well at the moment. And one of her tracks, Anxiety, is on repeat on my Spotify.
He did actually congratulate Beyonce on winning album at the Grammys.
Oh, he's so up to date.
He's so up to date.
What else is there?
Or his
Ray.
advisors are really up to date. one of the two.
Ray's album I've been listening to on repeat, and my kids are currently obsessed with a track called ATP. APP,
oh, yes, the Bruno Mars one. I love that.
The
Bruno Mars one.
All the words.
Yeah.
So those are 3 things.
So you just have that on loop.
Yeah.
So you and the King share a passion for Ray.
Oh, have you listened to the album?
He met Ray actually
incredible.
at Battersea Power Station. He saw her perform just before Christmas. So I think that's what inspired that choice.
The importance here of this playlist is it is also talking about the Commonwealth. That's the point of this.
Yes.
And I guess
it was released on Commonwealth Day,
Exactly.
and obviously every song has a link. Obviously Bob Marley, Jamaica, Kylie Minogue, Australia, etc.
Yeah, so Beyonce is obviously the
wild card.
But he said, he called it incomparable, and I think she's supported his King's Trust, so she got a shout out, as did Diana Ross as the final track on the playlist with Upside Down, and again he says that's describes that as being infectious.
You're right, it's definitely an anomaly. It's been some time since a British monarch was in charge of the USA. So
yes, I was trying to
roughly
think,
249 years or thereabouts.
It was a while ago, but he really, in order to do this, in order to be on a global platform, as you say, Chris, it's to, I guess, remind people that he isn't just king here, he's king of a lot of nations around the world.
So
that connection is
You've got a fantastic segue coming up to a chat about Canada, because that was perfectly done. Because
Thank you,
of course,
Chris.
yes, I thought this woman is skilled. We got her on the podcast for a reason.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, he's king of Canada. Now, which democratically elected leader of a country very close to Canada wants to annex it and make it a 51st state? And it's a very delicate tightrope. We just spoke about this in previous weeks on the podcast. At one point, he is inviting President Trump to come for what was called an unprecedented second state visit to the UK, at the same time as embracing Canada's outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and obviously Mark Carney's coming in to be the PM there soon. But he's the king of Canada, and it's a Commonwealth realm. And Donald Trump saying, "I want to have it," I mean, can't go down very well in Buckingham Palace.
Very delicate balance.
He is, he's navigating a very sort of diplomatic tightrope at the moment, isn't he? And all the while having to remain politically neutral and sitting above politics. And his message this year to mark Commonwealth Day, it was just a written message this year, published in the Order of Service, but reading it, he talks about the power that potentially the Commonwealth could have as this group of, this family of nations, this 56 countries. And he talks about, in these uncertain times where it is all too easy to believe that our differences are problems instead of a source of strength and an opportunity for learning, the Commonwealth's remarkable collection of nations and peoples come together in the spirit of support and, crucially, friendship. But it's that key phrase, isn't it, in these uncertain times.
And also difference is a source of strength. And there is a leader in the US at the moment who's purging a lot of diversity initiatives right across the government departments.
Yeah, and I mean the protests. I mean regarding countries being a part of a Commonwealth. That isn't just something that's happening in one country. There are protests and talks about countries leaving the Commonwealth the world over. So maintaining that connection and reminding people of that connection, I guess, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we spoke to the outgoing Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland, Baroness Scotland, and she was saying, look, yes, we are a nation, and we have always supported each other through thick and thin, throughout time. we were in, Barbados a few years ago when they stopped being a realm and became a republic. But interestingly, they stayed in the Commonwealth, and often those two terms are confused. The Commonwealth realms: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Jamaica, for now, and then the Commonwealth, which is the 56 countries. But when I spoke to Patricia Scotland just before the Commonwealth ceremony on Monday, we said to her, what about Canada? I mean, this is a big question, and this was the response she gave.
All we have control of is our response. So what is the...
And is your response hands off Canada?
Our
It's not for sale?
Well, Canada is a sovereign country.
And the king is the head of state?
He is the head of state. You demonstrate who you are by how you behave. And I think we all need to just take a big breath and not get too overwhelmed or too excited. We need to be ourselves.
Don't get too overwhelmed and not too excited. I mean, and it's true. I mean, every morning you wake up at the moment, don't you? And Donald Trump has said something overnight or said something in a press conference, or tariffs are doubling or tripling to 900% or whatever. But, the message from, she's outgoing. Patricia Scotland stops being the Secretary General after 9 years at the end of this month. But let's just take a breath and, just remember the bigger picture here, not react to every utterance from President Trump.
And so Patricia Scotland went from joining us there to Westminster Abbey, where they held the main service to mark Commonwealth Day. We were outside, weren't we?
Well, we were outside with a dinosaur.
Yeah. So we'll get to the dinosaur.
Do you know the name of the dinosaur?
I've got no idea what you're talking about.
So the service itself, the royal family were at the service led by the king, and actually what was different last year is the king and the Princess of Wales were back for Commonwealth Day.
Yeah.
Neither could attend last year, so they were sort of full force of the royal family at the service.
That was nice to see, wasn't it?
Which was nice.
Obviously, last year missing King and Kate, that was it felt like the royal family was very thin last year. Back to full strength this year. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to dinosaurs.
So outside was the anti-monarchy group Republic.
Yes.
They are, they pop up all over the country at all sorts of events, and they're quite a noisy. They make quite a lot of noise. Not my king is their normal sort of slogan. Anyway, they have a new mascot, Chuck the Rex. Chuck the Rex.
In other words, get rid of the king, or it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. There we go. You can see a bit of it there if you're watching this on YouTube.
They basically argue that the
Quite
monarchy.
a big old thing, isn't it?
It's huge.
They argue that the monarchy is a sort of relic that belongs in a museum.
Yeah.
Hence the dinosaur.
Chuck
I
the Rex.
see.
The Rex being Latin for king. So it's quite clever.
So will we see them parading the dinosaur around quite a bit? Are these
I think we probably will, because actually they put a bit of effort into it. We were looking inside the dinosaur's mouth, and there's some robotics going on, and the head's tilting left and right. And they say that they will also be at the Maundy Thursday service, which is where is it? Derby Cathedral? We don't
Durham Cathedral.
Durham. Is there a cathedral in Derby? Question. I don't think there is.
Details.
Overview.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Overview detail.
Be at some cathedral somewhere in the country, and on Maundy Thursday, which is the Thursday before Easter, like they have done previously. Again, big events in the royal calendar. You're now going to see these yellow flags. I mean, it's not my king. Down with the duchies. Down with the crown. No, ditch the duchies, isn't it?
Ditch the duchies.
Down with the crown. Not my king. I mean, so their placards are everywhere, and they're just making their voice heard. But actually, one thing a lot of people find a bit disrespectful, but we
live in a society where
we are entitled to protest, and their opinion is legitimate. They say 30% of the population supports their cause for having an elected head of state, but when the royals arrive, they do boo. They boo and they hiss, and it does make those things a lot more energetic.
It's certainly a change that we've seen. I think when the late Queen was alive, you wouldn't really have seen. Well, I don't think we ever saw groups like that at engagements, and they do it now, and they regularly do it now.
And we spoke to the chief executive there, Graham Smith, about this issue of Canada, and you'll hear him say, basically, well, what's the point of the king? If he can't stick up for Canada, why have him at all? This was the view of Graham Smith.
We've got Canada, one of the most prominent Commonwealth countries, being attacked by Trump, and Charles is nowhere to be seen. Won't say anything, won't stand up.
Because after all, a lot of people don't realise that King Charles is the king of Canada. It's still a realm country, and you've now got Donald Trump saying he wants to own it.
Yes, and at the same time, Charles is prepared to invite him over for a state visit to cozy up to him. We're told that Charles and Trump have a good rapport, that Starmer is trying to woo Trump to try and keep him away from attacking us, I guess. And the Canadians are like, well, what the hell are we doing with this king as our head of state when he can't speak up for us?
What the hell are we doing with this king as head of state? Well, there we are. That's the view of...
That sums up Graham Smith's view, I think.
Yes, and it'll be interesting to see how the protests develop as the year goes on. Now, in terms of somebody who is very outspoken about something that's very close to our heart is Queen Camilla. And I'll do a shameless plug now. On Monday, Loose Women is doing their Facing It Together campaign, which is all about domestic violence. And what's been really interesting is the Queen's name's come up quite a few times in a lot of the filming that we've been doing with, say, the Commissioner of Domestic Violence and also with other campaigners, that you talk about how important and how much of an impact Queen Camilla's support does have in their campaigns to try and highlight the cause.
That's interesting because she has been doing it for a very long time, and previously as the Duchess of Cornwall she was. And I always wondered about how much that does filter through to people. Obviously we had that big ITV documentary earlier this year where I thought it was one of the best royal documentaries I've seen, because it was very raw, very emotional. You could see how personally invested she was in the subject. But I think it's really interesting what you say, that people are now associating her with the cause of, supporting women who've been subjected.
Yeah, she really has lent her name to this, hasn't she? And she really, she said before, I'll do anything I can to help and to support and to raise awareness and to shine a light on this issue. And she really, one of the points in her doing the landmark documentary was because she wanted more conversations to start up around this issue, because so often it's taboo and people don't talk about it. And she wants actually, we should be having a conversation and people should know, how prolific it is.
And she's written to Gisèle Pelicot, who, for those that don't know, her husband was prolific in terms of sexual assaults against her by other men, and it's a huge case in France. And Queen Camilla got in touch with Gisèle.
Yeah, she wrote her a personal letter, and it's understood she was kind of tremendously affected by Gisèle Pelicot's story, and who couldn't be anyone watching that. But I think, for Queen Camilla, who has done so much work in this area, she was particularly affected by it. This story originated in Newsweek, and a royal aide spoke to them, and they said how affected she was and about the case in France, and that lady's extraordinary dignity and courage as she put herself in the public eye, because, as she rightly put it, why should she be made to feel like a victim or hide away in shame? Because, of course, she went to court every day, didn't she? And waived her right to anonymity. So.
Yeah, and it's an impactful thing, again, for the Queen to do. And I think those who work within the space, they can't get enough of her support, because, as you say, too many times this sort of issue ends up in the shadows when it shouldn't be. Now, we are going to start a new feature on the show because we've got loads of royal archive. You know how long we've been doing this at ITV News. We've reported on the royal family so many times over the years. We thought we'd delve into archives and be able to show you a few of the classic stories that we've covered. So we're going to go back to a story from this week, back in 1988, when Prince Charles and Princess Diana were on a skiing holiday with their friends in the Swiss Alps. Now, during that trip, Charles narrowly escaped being caught up in an avalanche.
Royal skiing holidays always begin with a set-piece pose for the photographers on a nursery slope. Then the royal party take to the mountains to tackle the advanced runs away from the cameras. They also ski off-piste to avoid pressmen who refuse to respect their request for privacy. Swiss officials say Prince Charles's party was skiing in deep snow made unstable by warmer weather. The avalanche missed the prince, but Major Hugh Lindsay was killed. Another friend suffered leg injuries.
Huge story at the time, Chris, wasn't it?
Yeah, so 1988, it's a reminder actually of all those times when, photographers and obviously TV cameras such as ourselves would be out there.
Yeah,
to
we don't
film
do that
those
anymore,
moments. No,
do
exactly.
we?
That's something, if they want to rearrange it, I'm sure we'll happily go. But
there are much clearer boundaries
yes.
between private time and public time, and holidays.
And that famous shot of Princess Diana when she put her hand in front of the cameras and said, "Just stop filming my boys." That was on one of the ski slopes as well. So it was a bit of a wild time when it came to the press, I think. And as you just heard, sadly, Major Hugh Lindsay, who was a very good friend of the Prince's, and he was skiing with him at the time, was killed in that avalanche. And press stories at the time reported Prince Charles, he was then going back and digging through the snow with his bare hands to try and save him, but unfortunately couldn't. And you might remember it was featured in an episode of The Crown fairly recently, and Major Lindsay's widow had actually asked the producers of The Crown not to include it. They went against her wishes and did so, and she was worried about the privacy of her daughter, or Major Lindsay's daughter as well, because his widow was pregnant at the time with Alice, who then became a godchild of Prince Charles, now King Charles.
Yeah, the King has spoken about what happened in 1988 and said he had never seen anything so terrifying. But he was a very experienced skier. He used to ski regularly. I think he learnt as a teenager and used to go most years. But he recently revealed on a trip to Middlesbrough, he was in a factory, and he did recently reveal that his skiing days are now behind him. But looking through the archives, I also found that in 1980, when he was on a ski trip, he came out dressed in a disguise with a fake moustache and nose and a hat on, and said to the waiting press, the Prince of Wales isn't coming out today, isn't skiing today, and it was actually him all dressed up to try and.
Does this picture exist?
It does exist.
Oh, well, I think we need to get hold of this.
Yeah, we definitely.
Okay, so next week's podcast, that's your task, is to dig it out.
It's a great picture.
I definitely want to see it.
I saw it and thought, is that really true? Did he really do that?
You know, one of the reasons why we thought we'd do a feature like this is because there is just so much. Yeah. You know, I mean, ITV's been in existence since the mid 1950s. Of course, the late Queen predated us, obviously coming to the crown in 52. But there's a lot of royal archive out there, and a lot of interesting stories, a lot of things that have happened that people may not remember. So, I think,
and it's how you define
the access was different.
Yeah.
So our insight into their lives was a lot different to what it is.
Well, it's like Kate and William were recently skiing, and we've got no photographs of that have been put in the public domain. People knew what restaurant they were eating in for their lunch. That's not been reported because they would like to go back to that restaurant again with their young family. And yes, they are public figures, but they also have a right to a private life and private time away from the cameras. So, but those lines are much more defined now than they used to be.
Yeah, but we were allowed to film.
Oh, what a segue, Charlene!
Yes. I've done this a few times. With Queen Camilla at Cheltenham. So what was she wearing? I'm going to ask Lizzie, not you, because Lizzie will describe it
a hat
so much better.
She was. Should we look at some pictures?
Yes.
While I describe it, she was wearing a hat, a fur trimmed hat there, and she was at Cheltenham this week. She was joined by her children, by the Tyndalls, and Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank were also there. She is joint patron of the Jockey Club. Rather sadly, though, she also met the girlfriend of jockey Michael O'Sullivan, who recently died in a fall. So it was kind of a sad, poignant part to her visit, but also some great pictures on the front pages of her cheering on various jockeys and their horses.
No, I don't really follow horse racing, but I have to say I do quite like it when they all get very excited.
She definitely
over the horses winning.
Now I can add some detail to the fashion.
To the fashion.
Industry,
go on, Chris.
You might have noticed that when Kate went to the aforementioned Commonwealth Day on Monday, the Princess of Wales was wearing red. Actually, there was a few people wearing red. Yeah. Some people are saying perhaps that was a nod for Canada, whose national colours are red and white. But I'll have you know that the dress was by Catherine Walker, and the hat was by Gina Foster.
Are we talking about the Queen or Kate?
Kate
that we finished talking about 20 minutes ago.
We did.
But I'm just bringing you some fashion tips.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it'll be a new feature. Chippy's fashion tips.
There we are.
So, there we are.
It's almost like people in the gallery were listening as we spoke about that.
Yeah.
So that hat is by Gina, and the dress is by Catherine.
Okay.
There we go.
Well done. we're not doing a section on Chris's fashion tips.
It would be very short every week if it was.
Super short,
Yeah.
and I don't think it would rate very well. But going on to William has been doing sport as well. He's cheering on Aston Villa, wasn't he?
Yes, he was at the Champions League match last night, which they won handsomely, and he was seen celebrating. Obviously, William's a massive Aston Villa fan. There we go. Up there in the stands. Without the kids, actually, he has taken George to some of the matches previously.
Is he just hanging out with the lads watching football?
Yeah,
What's
so
he doing now? Is he literally grabbing hold of that man's
Yes,
face?
so those are his friends,
I love
Edward
that.
Van Cutsem
He's on a lads trip.
and
I like that.
Thomas Van Strabenzi,
Yeah.
his two very good friends. So yeah, they were having a
You know what?
lads'
I'm
night
a
out.
really big fan of
Aston Villa?
seeing. No.
Okay.
Sorry to all the Aston Villa fans. I'll never say sorry, but no. Of seeing William and Kate just hanging out with their friends.
Right.
They've got
I think-
they've got a very very tight circle, William and Kate, and you don't often get stories leaked about them because they have a very tight, protective, good circle of friends that they spend time with.
I now want to see Kate on a girls' trip.
Okay.
You know,
Actually, I was going to say, I'm just checking to see where we can talk about it, and we can.
are you going on a search engine for something?
No, actually, it's in my email inbox.
okay.
Secret email inbox. But often, as Lizzie will correct me, I'll say something, oh, William and Kate are doing this next week, and we'll be told, no, you can't say that. So this one, I've just checked, and we are allowed to say that the Prince and Princess of Wales will be at the Wales versus England Six Nations rugby match this weekend. And of course, you were just saying you like seeing them sort of hanging out. Of course, Kate is patron of the England team, and William's patron, being Prince of Wales, of the Welsh team. So it's always
And
good
they
to
are
see the two of them.
famously a very competitive couple. They love going head to head, and there's always this great rivalry between them with the rugby because she's England and he's Wales.
Oh, well, that'd be fun.
Yes,
But there's
but he's
something else that
England
you
football.
can-
Don't get confused.
Yeah.
It's not Welsh football.
No.
So
No.
Thank you for that
all right.
clarification. But there is something else that you can
There is.
reveal
We are
today.
heading to Estonia next week with the Prince of Wales, who is there for a couple of days next week, mainly in his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercian Regiment.
Security-wise,
yeah, if you know your geography, then you'll know that those former, USSR states are very close to Russia. In other words, they have a border with Russia, and then Estonia is one such country. And it'll be very interesting to see, obviously, with everything going on in the world at the moment, what William is going to be told when he's there. And of course, that is part of NATO's eastern flank, where there are French soldiers and there are British soldiers currently stationed there. They're about to swap their tour of duty. But yes, he will be out there. We reckon about 2 hours drive from the Russian border. So
okay.
not that far.
And
But
you two going to be joining us?
we are,
Yes, it's
and
quite cold, apparently.
this has been in the planning for a while. This is not.
This is one of the things we couldn't talk about previously that I might have spoken about, and then we would have cut
And then we
it
had
out.
to edit it out
Yeah,
because
exactly,
then you
yeah.
got told off by Lizzie.
Yeah.
And it was a
There
thing.
you go.
Yeah, but it has been in the planning for a while. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not sort of in response to anything in the last few weeks.
Okay. So are you going to be here for the pod next week?
No, we'll be there.
We'll dial in.
Shall we dial in?
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I'll hold the fort here
Yep.
and I'll speak to you on like.
Or you can get some
boxes.
other guests in if you want. If you got people
I
you'd
get my
rather
mates
have.
in, use it an opportunity to fill it with real professionals.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll look forward to catching up with you two in Estonia.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
definitely.
Make sure you wrap up warm, Lizzie.
We will do.
And how much you love the cold. Now, of course, thank you to you guys for joining us, as well as these two. You can hear us doing Talking Royals every week. As always, by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch us on ITVX and on YouTube as well. Do not forget to leave us a review. We love a review. These two will be joining us from Estonia. I will be here in the studio next week, so make sure you join us. Bye.